Episode 193 of Gaming in BS, coming to you Wednesday, May 30th, 2018. Welcome to Gaming in BS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Good to have everybody on board. Sean, how's it going, man? Long weekend here.
It is a long weekend.
Which is nice.
Yeah, yes. It's nice.
It's a serious topic, obviously. It's Memorial Day. So it's...
Yes.
As I was schooled by you before, and I have actually schooled other people, now's not a day to walk up and be like, oh, jazz hands to your fellow service members, because now's the day to remember those who have paid the ultimate price. So it's that different kind of holiday. A little more somber.
That's right.
So let's see here. Announcements. What do we got? So Gamehole Con, event submissions are open. We talked about this before. We talked about the advanced Game Lounge 2.0, whatever now you want to call it.
Fantasy Flight Games.
That's right.
Game Lounge.
That's right. They're going to be doing some crazy stuff. Evercon.org. Our event submissions open June 1st. So that is this coming June 1st, 2018. That is this coming Friday. So when this drops on Wednesday, you'll have, Wednesday, May 30th, you'll have just a couple days, and boom, we'll be in your face at Evercon saying, hey, you running stuff? Do some stuff, man. Get that shit going.
Boom.
And I'm going to QCC, but that's not till September. Anything crazy, man? Anything cool?
Yeah, no.
So I posted this on G+. It's not really worth a die roll per se, but I'll throw it out here. So my wife happens to be friends with, you know Marcel.
I do know Marcel.
Yeah,
I'm kind of mad he didn't throw that stuff at me. I haven't talked to him in like 10 years.
So Barb and Marcel moved to Holland. Marcel's originally from Holland,
Yep.
and he was over here, met Barb, got married, whatever, and they said, hey, we're going back over there. Barb has MS, which is unfortunate, but she's really good health care over there, helping her out, blah, blah, blah. So it's cool. She's doing pretty well. So she comes back, they're cleaning out the last bits of their storage facility here in the States, and Barb's like, we should just throw this stuff out, or we should sell them. And Marcel has a stack of books, and he's like, no, we got to give this to Susan's family. Brett still games. He and the kids still game. We got to make sure they get this. So I've got, second edition, 2 players handbooks. They're a little on the musty side because they were in a storage locker, right? They got that, must, but there's no mold or anything. 2 of those, Monster Manual, Return of the Tomb of Horrors box set, mint. I don't think he's ever, apart from taking the shrink off and maybe looking through it, but the creme de la creme of it all was the Night Below box set. A little bit of dish on the top just from sitting, but you open it up, I don't think those maps have ever been unfolded. It's in mint condition inside. It is awesome. So I've got to get a thank you card out to Marcel because that was amazing. And I said, Susan, what does he want for it? No, he doesn't want anything. Just want to know that you're going to use it. I'm like, you're goddamn right. I'm going to use it. This is awesome.
Score.
Very big score. I could not believe it. That was really, really nice and very generous. Marcel's always been a super generous guy anyway, so just really nice. Nice little bit of fun on the side. Anything cool like that happen to you? Anybody gift you with some really cool game book randomly out of nowhere?
Nope, not yet. Still fingers crossed.
Odd, slightly bizarre twist to this. There was a 3.0 player's handbook in the bag. I'm like, oh, this one's seen a lot of love. This one's pretty beat up. I don't really need this one. I open it up. It actually is my wife's ex-husband's book because they used to. Marcel and her ex had gamed at one point, and somehow he ended up with it. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So that was just an odd little flashback moment. Funny. Anyhow, I think that's about enough of that. Do we have any random encounters this week, or are we short, man?
No, not a ton of feedback from the last couple episodes, which is just fine and dandy. There's a couple comments on the Google Plus group, but not directly related to any of the most recent episodes. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, so we could skip it for once in 100 episodes.
I
don't know if we've ever skipped random encounter.
I think we may have the first episode because no one had written to us yet.
That's true.
Apart from that. But hey, you know what? Not everybody has, not every episode is going to drive people to have social responses or whatever. So That's fine. Totally cool.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
And sometimes when you have a guest on a show and you're talking to them about different components, if you're not, it's almost like it would be, maybe this is something we could do next time we do have a guest, is if we know about them in plenty of time ahead of time, I can say, hey, so-and-so is coming on the show. Do you have any questions for he or she? And then we could field some of those questions. But kind of preemptive strike, if you will, get some of those random encounter questions right out of the gate. What do you think, Sean? How about that?
That sounds like a great plan. Did you come up with that on your own, Brett?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I was due for a good idea. All right, well, the hell with this then. Let's just go right to the main topic, man.
Main topic. All right, Brett, what are we talking about this week that we've been mentioning for the last 3 episodes but never covered?
So we're going to talk about Cold Shadows, the RPG. Sean had mentioned this a while back that he picked this up and was really... Did you get it in the Kickstarter on this one? Did you kickstart this sucker?
I did. I am excited.
So, and I'm here to ask a lot of questions of Sean and make him question his financial purchases. I actually went out and bought a copy of the PDF myself and read through it this weekend. I've got some opinions, so let's do the first bit real quick here. So we're talking about Cold Shadows. It's written by Alan Barr, Ben Warner, Elizabeth, oh my god, I'm going to murder that last name, C. Toby Abad, and Drew Wendell. It is Gallant Knight Games. Got my PDF copy off of DriveThru. Follow our little affiliate if you're interested in it after take a look at this. Did you get a hard copy through the Kickstarter, man?
So I do have like a special edition coming.
Ooh.
Yes. But I did order a print-on-demand one from DriveThru. And then I also got... So I got the Cold Shadows core rulebook, and then I also got the Black Book.
Oh, okay.
And I also got Cities in Shadow. So the Cities in Shadow is a book of locales, and then the Black Book is agencies, agents, and cities.
Nice.
Yes, and you could see. Well, you can't see if you're on the audio version. They are not. I mean, Cities in Shadow is about. What does it weigh in at? 63 pages.
Well, the core rule book cover to cover is only 100. I mean, on PDF format, including front and back cover, you're looking at 130. That's it. It's
Right.
not a very hefty. It's not a hefty book.
The Black Book is 35 pages, so pretty slim, but that's okay. Good stuff.
There's something to be said for that too. I mean, Phil Vecchionis talked about it, and you can get. Sean was kind enough on my birthday. I got a copy of the Midgard big frickin' book. Oh my god, you could kill a man with that thing. Or my Astonishing Swordsman, Sorcerer of Hyperborea. Your big books like that were so dense and there's so much in it, they can be very daunting. And you look at it and you think, God, I've heard good things about that game, but man, that's a hefty book. Dude, do I want to take the time? We're looking at 130 pages, and we're not even talking, full pages, because there's art, there's spacing, there's all sorts of stuff within it. It's, I don't know, maybe 115, 120, maybe if you really, really crammed it. But it's nicely, I think the layout's pretty good. It read really well. So I'll tell you what, though, Sean, before we go too crazy into this, have you played Cold Shadows?
I have not played it.
Neither have I. So I want to get that out there so people don't be like,
right.
You bastards, you haven't even fucking played it. How can you? So I think we're going to take this similar to how we did the first time Sean and I met. We're talking about different games and stuff. He had played DCC once or had read through the books, and we kind of had peripheral. We hadn't been as deeply involved in it. And I think what we're going to do here is kind of the first impressions of the system, just what we've read, what we think we may or may not like, and does it seem like it's focusing on the stuff that is promised? Because this game has a genre, a type, a style, and all that stuff that it says on the tin, hey, look, we're going to drive for X experience. So when you read through it, for me, the first time I read through something like this, a game book, and I say, wow, it's promising X, does it deliver on that when I read it? Do I feel immersed? Do I feel like, hey, this is really going to emulate or, really help me get the feel of it? So I think we can come at it like that. You good with that?
Dude, I got so many notes over here, man. I'm
You
probably
do?
more prepared for this episode than the last 190.
That's That's good. That's very
Wow.
good. Wow. So
Yeah.
Sean, what's the what is the core activity of this game? What's this about?
So, from the back of the book, it states, Cold Shadows is a tabletop RPG game, role-playing game, where the rules are focused on telling a dynamic, personal, and compelling story. The game is set in a tout world of espionage, betrayal, and drama inspired by the great spy stories of authors such as John le Carré and Robert Ludlum.
So we're talking Cold War.
Right.
Okay. So we're
Yes.
not. This is so right out of the gate. This is not Ian Fleming's James Bond. At least not the Sean Connery, crazier, Bondy, Inspector Gadget crap, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be Cold War, but it isn't going to be. It's drama and suspense over thrilling action, is what it says in the book.
Yeah, more Wilderness of Mirrors style play.
Right.
Okay. All right. Is it? I guess when I read through it, my default, maybe this is just because when they mention Le Carré, I keep thinking Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which I've not read the book. I've only seen the movie, and I loved it. I watched the movie a few times, and I think about that. I'm like, oh, it's clearly a Cold War. But you're telling me that you don't. When you read this, did you get the impression you could run it modern, or any time in quasi-modern history?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. If you run it, or when you run it, what do you think you're going to do with it?
Probably Cold War. Probably
Cold War?
1960s.
Okay.
Berlin Wall. Checkpoint Alpha Bravo Charlie.
Gotcha.
Yeah, probably European setting. Yeah.
All right.
Warsaw Pact. Good stuff.
So within this game, are the roles of game master and player the traditional ones where we've got a GM and a host of players, or is this less GM centric? Is it more player driven? What's your take on it?
So there's a couple different ways to play it. I think as we relate to it this evening, it will be the more traditional sense. So there is a one-on-one version of the game.
There's actually a solo version of the game
There's
too.
also a solo version of the game. But we're going to talk about, I think, when we're referencing question and answers, that it's going to be about a group of players to include the narrator. So to get to your question, Brett, there's a narrator and then there are the agents.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, we should probably stipulate before we get into a lot of the details that this is based on the rules by John Wick's Houses of the Blooded and Blood and Honor.
Correct.
They also used some material from Werner Wunderwerk's expansion World of Dew, which I'm not familiar with.
See, I read it when I read through it with the components of aspects and compelling. I kept thinking Fate.
Right, sure. And I don't know. I haven't played John's Houses of the Blooded, so I don't know if
I have Houses of the Blooded. I was going to read that today in prep for this, and I just didn't get to it. So, I don't know if that's it. That may well be in there. I don't know. So
those
I'll have to check that out.
So those that may listen to this, why is this thing not opening?
I don't
water
know.
bottle.
Get your water bottle open.
It's going to be a problem. So those that have probably played John Wick's Houses of the Blooded probably have a really good cross-reference. For those that haven't, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. I've got all the rules in front of me to talk about intelligently to Brett. Yeah.
All right.
As you were saying, Brett.
So as I was saying, that's the core. So how does that core mechanic function? Are we just, is it your standard dice, or are we looking at a single type of die? Is it a die pool? What are we looking at here?
I think my water bottle broke. I'm pissed off now.
Oh, you look kind of angry.
Son of a bitch. Anyway.
Dice. Do we use them?
We use dice. They're all D6.
D6. All of them that would indicate a die pool, correct?
Correct. You create a die pool. It's based on a few different things. And that you always have a target number. So it's not die pool and so many successes. It's die pool target number.
And the target number is always
10.
Correct.
So I'll say that again. 10.
Yes.
always 10.
10. The nice thing about that, when I read through it, I read that, I'm like, well, that's pretty fucking cool, because then, obviously, if I can garner up 6, 8 dice, adding them together to get 10, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get me a 10.
Well, that may be true, Brett, but you probably don't want to roll all your dice.
Oh, probably not, but the point is, if I really had to hit that target, knowing that the target's always 10, and using 6s, 3 or more dice is going to be pretty damn handy to have.
So so there was an actual play, and I'll pimp that during die roll. But one thing that I think people may pick this up and make a mistake about is that the die roll. So the mechanic is a die pool, and when you're specifically when you're about to roll dice, you are overcoming a risk. Okay, so that's kind of that's the cue that you are going to be rolling dice. So a risk is defined in the game as a meaningful action taken by a character whose outcome may influence the plot and or other characters. So if there is a risk, then narrative rights are at stake. So if the player rolls well, then the player gets narrative. Otherwise, the narrator gets to do it. What I think some people may have to keep in mind is that it is not a success or fail.
Yeah, because it doesn't say that if I'm the narrator and you roll the dice, because all the dice are player facing, if I remember correctly. You
Yes.
roll the dice, and if you get a 6, I get to narrate success or failure. Success or failure. If you were to get a 10 or higher, you get to narrate success or failure, if I remember the reading. You could choose something bad, potentially, if you wish to fail.
Yeah, you can choose how shit rolls, how it goes. So most of the times, if you're the player and you're up against a risk, then you are rolling your die pool and trying to get 10. But when you narrate, you probably will narrate in the positive. You will successfully do what is the risk is involved. It'll be a positive outcome for the players, but it doesn't have to be. That's what is when the success comes around, the success or failure of the roll determines privilege.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
You have the privilege of narrating, and it's not about success or failure, but who gets to narrate it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, let me take a look at my note here. Excuse me. So, have you played games like that before, with that type of approach for narration?
I'm trying to think who gets I know I have, and I just cannot think what game it would have been for narrative control.
I think the closest thing I have come to is Fate Accelerated with Dresden, when I was playing with Tom Flanagan, Chris, Emily, and Kevin, where we were gaming. But other than that, I don't mind it. I mean, I read that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It doesn't strike me as being like a crazy idea or anything like that. So, and I know full well that other systems do this type of thing. So that seems pretty cool.
So what happens is when you build your pool, there's a few factors that come into play. We haven't gotten into character generation or agency generation, but there are elements that will say if this applies to this situation, you get so many dice. If you have a virtue, you get so many dice. If you get so many aspects, you get so many dice. So one may say, well, if I get 5 or 6 or 7 dice, I mean, it's virtually impossible not to get a 10 outcome.
Correct.
So the way and the real strength of the game, I guess, for lack of better words, is that you will want to consider wagers, is what they're called. And what that means is that you, instead of rolling, say your die pool is made up of 7 dice. Okay, so after it's all done and said and considered, you got 7 d6s to roll and get a 10 success rate on when you add it all up.
Okay.
But what you do is you choose to wager a couple of those dice. So you set 2 of those dice aside and you waged, say, 2 of them. So now your die pool goes from 7 to 5. Because 5 is still a pretty good shot. I mean, you got to roll a lot of 1s not to get a 10 on 5 dice.
Fair, yeah.
So you get 2 that are set aside, and those are wagers. And wagers allow you to do a few more things, which includes it can lead to more trust points. The victor decides who spends their first wager. So wagers, if you have multiple people doing a risk, then the amount of wagers, I think, is determined on like who had the highest roll and the highest amount of wagers. And then you start there, and you can go around clockwise as people spend their wagers.
Oh, so if I've got 3 in and you've got 2 and the narrator's got 4, there's a hierarchy based on wagers as to different bits and pieces.
Correct.
That can happen. Okay.
And a wager is used to basically, it's not to say, no, this does not happen or negate anything. It is to be used as a yes and or a yes but.
Okay.
Right? So the person that overcomes the risk, the risk is what it is. You roll, you get a 10, 11, 12 result, and then based on how many wagers, so then whoever has privilege narrates the scene, and then the wagers go around until they're depleted. And I think you can take a pass. So if it comes to you and you're like, okay, your turn, Brett. You had a wager. You say, well, I'm not. I'm going to skip mine. You can skip yours, and then it goes to the next person. So it may be that your character, maybe you don't have anything to contribute. You're waiting to see how things pan out. But that's how wagers. One thing that wagers helps do in the game. So that's where you start doing more things. So Brett may say, well, okay, for this, this is what happens. And then the next person, or Brett says, I'm going to use one of my wagers and say yes and or yes but.
Yeah,
so it really, go ahead, Brett.
No, I was going to say, if you succeed in a wager, I'm reading right here off of page 28, you get bonus effect. Bonus effect usually leads to more trust points, but it can also be used to take narrative control of a scene and provide additional details. Yes, this means the players tell the narrator what's happening in the scene. Wagers give everyone the opportunity to be the narrator, to be in charge, to add to the collective narrative.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. So just because one person succeeded and has privilege and can set the scene in the narration doesn't mean that stops there. All right. The wagers come into play after that, and it builds upon the scene, could build upon the drama. Because what may happen is you could start getting into trust issues and betrayal. So maybe when you're talking spy games, trust is a big deal, but there's also betrayal. There's double agents. There's moles. There's other things that are going on. So it really depends on the dynamic of the group that you have and the agents that they're playing and really what they want to do with the story. So this game would be, I don't even know why I've been putting this off, because if you play it by the rules, and I think like the actual play where the guys were more, okay, I succeeded, okay, right? So I wanted to do this. I rolled a 10, therefore I succeed. It's not a succeed. It's what happens.
Yeah, because I mean, I love the phrase that they have a privilege when you're rolling dice in Cold Shadows is not about success or failure. It's about who gets to say what happens.
That's right.
It's a small little 2-sentence paragraph there, but that's powerful. That's the whole thing of it, right there.
Right, and therefore, prep is like you just create a bit of a scenario, and it has to be like maybe this long, because the rest is all going to be done through narration and privilege, and then there's betrayal, and it in a more multiplayer game, multiplayer game with more than just one-on-one and a narrator. It is to be played over time, because you could lose characters over time. And things like trust pools get transferred over to next sessions and things of that nature. So you can run it as a one-shot, of course, but there is more to it as it goes over time.
One thing I think is important with wagers, they have the golden rules. I put a little bookmark in here, so I remember this. Mm-hmm. You cannot use a wager to contradict a previously established element of the scene.
Correct.
You cannot use a wager to say no. I know, Sean, you said this, but I just want to call it out again. Mm-hmm. You can only use wagers to say yes and or yes but. You cannot simply negate another person's wager. I think that's important because when I first read it, I'm like, well, then I could just stomp all everybody. That's kind of like the dickhead in the group story kind of participation thing. And like, oh, wait a minute, no, they have a rule that says no, you can't do that. It's not built for that type of thing. I think you're right from a prep perspective. You can have a very, very skeletal approach to what is probably going to happen tonight, and then you and your players need to come with your creative juices rolling because you're gonna have to use it, right? To have a really good game session, you're going to need everyone at the table to be ready to be active. It's going to be really difficult to sit back and say, I roll, I hit, I do 4 damage.
Right.
That's not going to cut it. This game, as written, does not play like that.
So if you fail the roll and you do not get a 10 or above, you don't get anything. You don't get any wagers, and you don't get privilege. Okay. So I don't remember if the narrator gets to do that or if it's just kind of stops. I think it keeps going, but I can't recall. So,
right.
So building the pool, you get, you can only use one virtue. So you use one virtue, which is part of your character generation.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's step back and talk character gen, because I think we hit that. The core mechanic piece is basically you're going to pool up your 6-siders.
Yep.
And then you're going to roll X number to try to beat a 10 for privilege. Or if you've got a bunch of extras, you can do the wagering thing.
Right.
So one of the things that I liked about what I read here is that you start off, it's group build, which reminds me of the original Dresden rules I used to have back in the day when that first came out. You discuss who the director is for the agency, what's the virtue of the agency, what assets it has, reputation, and the secret about the agency. If I'm parsing through it, so you're building all this together as a team, which I think is really cool. Go ahead.
So you're building an agency is the first step, kind of in the book. Now you could potentially get a supplement, like I mentioned earlier, and they do have sample agencies in here. So you could literally say, "Hey, we're all going to work for the CIA," and the CIA is going to have the traits that we'll touch on just in a second. Otherwise, you can build your own agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do that, and then as a member of that agency, you get a couple things from it. That's why it's important to establish the agency first, then start on the character build.
The other thing that's important, I think, when you talk about it, they say this here, is historical accuracy is secondary to theme and fun. If you know real historical figures and behavior, that's wonderful, can add to immersion. However, never let real history get in the way of a great story and experience for all the players. So I think that's important, because when I think about Cold War, one of the things I think about for this is to really get into it. Am I going to have to bone up on everything that happened? Recall everything that happened in the 80s or 70s or whatever. Do I have to really dig through all that? No, you don't. It's not a historical treatise on any particular piece. You don't have to go that crazy with it. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I think it can help if you've got a narrator that knows, or even just players that really get down on Cold War and espionage, the topic of it, like knowing.
Oh yeah, I mean you got people that totally.
Right.
Yep.
One-time pads and drops and it's not the internet era, so things covers, things like that. So, anyways.
So when you make the agency, you basically you figure out who the director is, man, woman, who's the director of it, the virtue, which is the component that your agency attempts to train in each agent, right? So they've got examples of it being, let's see here.
Well, the director's personality.
Yeah, director's got a personality: ambitious, clever, cruel, cunning, dangerous, paranoid. And different, pluses and minuses to that. Your virtues are charisma, resolve, perception, violence, athleticism, intellect, which I think is pretty slick. So they're broad brush pieces, but it's really neat.
But so the personality of the director really relates to how the agents are going to conduct business. So you're kind of inheriting
as a guy who in his day job. As a guy in a day job who runs a fairly large IT team, yeah, if you come in and you don't do it right, yeah, you can watch a whole team just go crazy around you.
So obviously, if your director is cunning, obviously then that is what the team is how they conduct business. Like that's kind of what they're known for because it's from the top down, right?
Culture is top down.
And then you have of each one of those, ambitious, clever, cruel, cunning, dangerous, and paranoid, then you have an advantage to each one and a disadvantage to each one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you pick clever, for example, then all equipment provided for agents is considered good quality. That's why some of this helps long term, right? It's not one shot because some of these things are going to come into play down as the campaign progresses. So that's advantage for clever. The disadvantage for clever is all agents gain the aspect unorthodox, which can be used against them. So that's...
No, I like it. It's cool. I mean, it's the plus and the minus, right? Everything's got it.
That's right.
And I like the virtues component where it talks about every agency focuses on training one of these 6 virtues. Your agency selects the one to qualify, which it qualifies and wants to instill and engender in its agents. So this is charisma, resolve, perception, violence, athleticism, intellect. And charisma, communicate, talk, resolves, that ability for your agent to say no to temptation, seduction, fear, pain, torture. Perception, hey, pay attention. Violence, ability to wield weapons, inflict harm and damage. Athleticism, lifting, running, climbing, all that stuff. Intellect, truth of the matter. It's all about knowledge over physical power and so forth. So I like it because every agency that you build has a focus, right? I'm part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has this virtuous focus. This is our virtue. This is what we focus on.
Yeah,
so I think that's pretty cool.
This goes to about the agents that the agency recruits.
Correct. Yeah, hey, this is what we do. We recruit people with great resolve. We recruit people with high intellect, perception, violence potential, or whatever, because that's what it is that we do.
Correct. Yep.
I like it.
So then the step 3 of the agency piece is agency assets, which represents wealth and essential individuals available on your home turf during downtime and between missions. So again, going back to the longer-term campaign, how agency assets come into play.
There's some cool stuff in there when it's not just, the combat instructors, good God, I can't talk, military liaisons, but it's got like non-governmental contacts, quartermaster, school, shrink, because, hey, it's fucking stressful out there, kids. Slush fund, all that, archives, just some cool stuff. These lists aren't really long. I mean, it's less than a page, but each of these pieces feels to me, and I don't know as much about the spy genre as you do, Sean, but it feels to me like they've encapsulated quite a bit in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like a dozen things. Yeah. They've encapsulated a lot of different, really core espionage components here, so which is really neat.
Yeah. So every player starts with 1 rank of con ops. So that's kind of like operations 101. Then as things go on, you can pick up additional assets.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the next one is step 4, which is aspects. So each agency has 4 of them. And then this defines their approach to like con ops and missions. So you have an invoke and a compel to each aspect. And some of the examples, like a couple of them are like flip the enemy and hold my beer.
Center of attention, grim as death, honeypot. Yeah, good stuff.
So hold my beer invoke would be your agency is well known for its excessive agents, right? Gain 3 dice on any risk when drunk. So when you create your die pool and you're a member of this agency and you want to invoke hold my beer, you're going to get 3 additional dice to your die pool.
This is the spy version of Drunken Master of Kung Fu.
That's right. And then the compel side is a drunken man will say anything, do anything. Be careful. Drunkenness is not always forgiven, and if you are caught leaking secrets... ... That's right. So that's how, again, as your agency falls down to your agent.
The other thing I like in it, excuse me, they're not all, I mean, grim as death, no humor, no compassion, nothing but action results. You gain 3 bonus dice on this invoke to resist any attempt to change your mind once you've made it up. That sounds pretty cool. Tough, whatever. The compel, you have no sense of beauty. You cannot appreciate poetry or painting or theater or any of the arts. It feels squishy to me. Like, I don't get that. But then you think about this game. This doesn't have hardcore, shooting in the face mechanics. It's spies. And there's going to be that situation where if you do pull a James Bond and you've got to go to a fancy dinner party, you've got to go to this embassy and do a thing, you don't fit, right? You are grim as fucking death, man. You have no sense of beauty. You don't appreciate stuff. You have this stiffness about you. So I read that and I'm like, okay, this is going to play out in social situations. This person is cold, right? No humor, no joking, none of that stuff. That's just, it's, again, a lot packed in just a little bit there. So that's pretty cool. Then they've got other cool ones, reckless behavior, red dot diplomacy, words are bulletproof. Some really cool stuff in there. That's really neat. So what do we got? Oh, step 5, reputation.
That's right.
This is pretty cool too. Every agency has a reputation, a thing they're known for being the best at. What's the thing for your agency? What do they excel at? So this one doesn't have a list, Sean. Does the sidebook have, in the examples, I'm assuming it has reputation stashed in there for them all? He says as he quickly flips through the book.
Yeah, so say, for example, the Russian Federation, Federal Security Service, or FSB. So their reputation is our agency's authority comes directly from the president. Who are you again? Another example would be, let's see, Brett, Poland.
Okay.
Reputation, Republic of Poland. So they have the Foreign Intelligence Agency. Their reputation, what's yours is ours. Our agency has eyes and ears everywhere. We will uncover your secrets.
That's neat.
Yeah. So those are some of the ones that they came up for in the Black Book. But,
well, and as a narrator, if you don't have the Black Book and you were to go through and say, well, what's the NSB, NFB, whatever you said there, I can't remember the acronym. But if you go through these different places, what's the reputation of it? It says a lot because that's just a thing. It's this great thing to hang a story idea or a hook on, or a piece to build your NPCs off of as well. Hey, this person works for the CIA. They have a reputation of what? And then you just kind of build off of that reputation. That's pretty cool. What is the last step there, Sean?
Secrets. So each player gets to say one true thing about your agency.
That's pretty cool.
Right?
The only bit, you cannot contradict an already established truth, but you can modify it. You can say whatever you like. It's true. Remember to keep a focus on the style and immersion of the game. For example, you could create secrets around the director, failed operations, or other events in the division and agency's past. Okay, that's pretty cool. I love the little piece in there. Don't contradict shit, right? Basically, very politely saying, don't be a dickhead gamer. If somebody else says something, you can modify it slightly. And I can see the conversation at the table where if we do this, Sean, we'll be like, hey, I say this. Well, hey, how about we do... And then I can see kind of a writer's table-y modifying around as we go, I like it. Seems pretty cool.
So the CIA secrets that they have in the book is, because they are well educated, our agents question orders when given reason to. There is a protocol for dealing with this situation when it gets out of hand. It isn't a nice protocol. So, yeah.
Oh, constantly questioning orders, huh? Step over here, would you?
And that coincides with the reputation, even though it doesn't have to. The reputation of the CIA is we have the world's best training, which leads to the world's best agents.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I like it.
Yeah.
So that's it.
After you're done with that, the agency is done and built.
Then you go into the agent. You pick your name, a role, the virtues aspects of the agent, trust and cover, and an advantage. Name simple. The role, I think they've got a stock, what I would consider a stock list, which is kind of cool.
I'd back up on the name, Brett.
Oh, okay. What
So
do you think?
The name doesn't have to be a birth name, for one.
Oh, okay.
And it has to be a personal meaning your character associates with the name. And if during a risk, if the risk relates to the meaning of your name, you get an additional 2 dice to the risk pool. If you pick a code name, and the code name is related to that, you get a +1 die to risk pools. So
okay. Yeah, you're right. I glossed that, man.
yeah,
You're right.
So if you pick a name, that's cool. But if it has a certain meaning, maybe it's like your code name's the Hammer because every time there's something that has to be resolved, you bring down the big hammer, you get extra dice. Maybe it's something like action oriented. I bring the hammer.
You could potentially. I've not played, but you could do well. My father was a carpenter. I'm named after my dad, and there's connections in there. And when things are tied to that, you remember. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Wow. All right. Wow. I totally fucking glossed over that. That's pretty cool.
The name
there's a bit in there.
It's just not a name in this game. It actually can relate to getting dice for your dice pool.
Well, same with the roll then, right? The roll gives you 3 bonus dice for any risk involving your job.
Yep.
If you're a security chief, roll also grants you unique special ability, and they have special benefits during the game.
And there's 12 of them.
Yeah. Everything from
rolls.
accountant, commander, analyst, counterintelligence, deputy director, freelancer, handler, hitter, public relations, security chief. Good stuff.
Now, I should say, because some folks in some games are always worried about a balanced party, in this game you can have multiple agents with the same role. So if y'all want to play hitters or masterminds or doctors, whatever, or 2 people want to play the same thing, it's okay. You can do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, especially depending on the type of agency you build, right? If you build the agency and a director and you have access to stuff, it doesn't matter that, if you think of a one-on-one like Smiley in Tinker Tailor, he's got a host of people he knows and trusts and can pull in. Interesting. Okay, yeah, I did not think about that, but you're dead right. Yeah, you don't have to spread it. I don't need a handler, a hitter, and a mastermind, and a public relations person to make this game work. Okay, very cool.
Yeah. So like Brett mentioned, you get +3 dice to any risk involving your job. So it's obviously, if it aligns with what you do, you're going to get 3 extra dice. Kind of makes sense, right? This is my thing. I'm a doctor. I'm going to do first aid on this person. Okay, yeah, you're going to get 3 dice because it's your job. There may be times when you're trying to overcome and build a risk pool that has nothing to do with your job. Doesn't mean you can't build a pool. You're just not going to get those 3 extra dice for your roll, your ROLE roll.
Got it.
Right. You also get a special ability with each roll, and then you also get the single-use in-game benefit. So you get one kind of boon that's special to your roll.
Cool. I'm looking at the virtues here, the next piece. Let's see here. Yes, there's 6 virtues, but unfortunately, you are mortal and flawed, and you only get 5. The 6th virtue is your weakness. You'll never have ranks in that virtue, which is kind of neat. It's building in a little character for your character right out of the gate. Then you get 1 virtue at 4, 2 virtues at 3, 2 virtues at 2, and 1's the weakness, right? A W next to it, so you know it's weak. I would write it in bold, big bold W.
That's right.
That way you know it's weak. Nice.
Yeah, and you can increase your agent. So if you have a weakness, or if you have a virtue, and it's the same virtue that you got from your agency, you can bump up the virtue a point. Okay? And then, unless it's your weakness. Because you could have a weakness that is
like
that comes from your
virtue.
Agency. And
That'd
they
be
actually
great.
say in the book, like, hey, way to role play, buddy. Way to take on a role play situation.
Yeah, tough luck, but way to commit to the role playing. Good luck
That's
for
right.
you.
Yep.
Then you choose 3 of the 4 aspects of your agency that's chosen to define agents, and each player simply writes down 3 of them that they want. And then you go into background and touchstone. So, this is where your agent comes from before becoming an agent, and there's advantage and so forth listed underneath it. So I think these are, I don't know if you want to go through all of those pieces there, but you got military, politics, civilian, espionage. There's some pretty cool stuff in there. Again, I think they did a very good job of blocking things out simply, but with enough detail to really sink your teeth into.
Yeah, there's 5 of them, and then each has 5 advantages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Then we got trust and cover.
Right.
You give me some 2 ranks in trust, 2 trust points for the old trust pool, and then you get 1 rank in cover. And then you write a name and occupation next to the cover, but we'll use that cover to accomplish it. When you use that cover to accomplish a risk, you add a number of dice equal to your cover rank to that risk. So that's pretty cool.
The rank.
Yeah.
That's another thing people might get tripped up on is if your rank, because you can, now your cover, you can actually increase ranks in your cover.
Yeah, so if your cover is, auto mechanic, rank 3, you're in there, you've got more dice as opposed to rank 2 or rank 1. Or less than a rank 5, per se. Very cool.
Yeah, and the trust and cover piece, the trust piece is each agent has 2 ranks in trust. So 2 for the trust pool, and then you designate a player to have your trust. And then what happens is you kind of keep that, and then as your actions either help them, so if you put if you kind of put their needs ahead of yours, it builds trust between you two. But you can also betray the agents, and you have 3 trust boxes. So if you betray, so if Brett's the other character, I write Brett has my trust, right? I designate his player character as my sidekick. But Brett does something to betray me, I mark a box. And then Brett does it again, I mark another box. Until all 3 boxes are full, then Brett goes on my blacklist. And what can happen is then we're kind of, obviously I don't trust him. He does shit to screw me over.
Come on, man. Come on. It's just that one time.
But what can happen is it can come back where that trust can be rebuilt, and then his character can actually be on the list and become a trust agent down the road. But you have to get even with them. That's how it works.
Exactly.
It's getting even.
Once we get even, we can reset. That's how that goes.
Yeah.
So another piece coming after that, you've got advantages. Each agent gets 1 advantage of their choice from the list. It's free that they can justify however. And so you've got cold-blooded killer, fast healer, favorite weapon, irreproachable, like a local, lucky, measure twice, cut once. Oath, outsider, perceptive, up close and personal. Some cool stuff. Again, I think they did, I've said this before, and I'll say it at least one more time. There's a lot of cool tropes, if you will, packed into each one of these pieces, at least as I read it. Enough for me to sink my teeth into as a player. I think it would be pretty cool.
So there is the player character. So when you get the virtues and you get the aspects and you get your role, the role of your actual character, that starts building those risk pools. So if you're going to take a risk, then you start building the pools based off of that, right? So some of it is derived from agency, and some are, directly. Some things that you got to keep in mind is like there's only certain times you can. There's only you can only spend 1 virtue. You can only use 1 virtue during a risk. So some people may think, oh, I got this and I got that and I can aim this and now I got 20 dice. So there's only a certain amount of each piece that you can use. Like aspect, you can only invoke 1 aspect per risk, right? You can't invoke 3 or 4.
So one of the things I like to do when I read through a game, I go through character creation as I go to the example character sheet that they've always got buried somewhere in the back or sometimes up front, depending how they're filling it out. This is simple. It's 1 page. It's less than a page. It's really simple. And I look at that, and I compare the character sheet to what I just read about character creation. I'm like, oh, done. Everything on here is what I need. There's nothing. I don't feel like if I write down all the right stuff here, I may have to do a quick, flashback to, page 23 so I can verify what something specifically means. But generally speaking, the text in here, excuse me, is very concise. If you have an advantage of fast healer, you heal faster than other agents. At the end of the day, you always heal 1 injury rank, regardless of your current condition. That's really easy to remember. It's not like a huge diatribe of anything. They're small, quick paragraphs of how this functions. So it'd be very easy to put a little Cliff Notes thing in your character sheet. So that's a personal thing I like, is I want as much as I can have. I want the character sheet to have as much information as possible on it that I can interpret it like that and just fucking play. I don't want to have to keep referencing back. For the game like this, certain systems, if you have spells and things you might have to look up and blah, 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 I get that. But a game like this, I look at that character sheet and I'm like, I want it to be quick because I feel we're going to be doing a lot of, getting privilege, or we're going to be talking about yes and or yes buts, and we're going to be talking, working back and forth. I don't want to have to say, oh, hang on, I think I have something, and flip, 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 flip. Granted, it's only 130 pages. But I want to be able to have it on my character sheet to say, this is my aspect, this is my weakness, this is a virtue, and just roll with it. So I think it's pretty concise, but there's a lot packed into it, I believe, anyway, from what I'm seeing. Again, haven't played it, but it feels like there's plenty of meat there. Where do you want to go next, man?
Well, there's the trust pool, which is a component of the game as well. So that goes into going back to, okay, we have a risk. I'm going to have wagers. Wagers allow you to put some more cherries on the top as far as narrative goes. But it can also use, you can use wagers to build the trust pool back. So trust pool can also be used to add to your risk pool. So going to build your risk. You're going to take something out of your trust pool. So before you take a risk, you can draw 1 trust point from the trust pool, because each agent gets 2 at the start of the game. So if you spend it, it's gone for the remainder of the adventure. And then what happens is if you choose to use a trust point, you can add 4 dice to your risk. And then you could also use it to add details to the story. So one or the other. Okay, so that's where you use trust, and that's how the trust pool starts to diminish. So when you lose trust, when agent takes an action that is a betrayal, so upends a plan or ruins the operation, the narrator takes 3 trust points from the pool when that happens. So if Brett screws me over or screws over the operation, the narrator can take 3 trust points from the pool. And then trust does carry over. So at the end of the adventure, whatever trust is left, that gets carried over. To earn them, you take a risk that directly furthers the agency's interest. So you also align with the agency. Hey, I'm doing it for the CIA. I'm a corporate player, right? And not your own interest. And then you take a risk that upholds the agency's agenda, plans, or goals. That's another way. And then if you take a risk that puts your agent in danger while fulfilling your bond of trust. That goes back to the previous example where I'm going to take a risk that puts my guy in danger because I'm going to help Brett's character. Right? I'm going to take a bullet, then I get trust. That's because I did that.
Well, it makes sense. I like it. I think it's pretty cool. It's a neat way to. It reminds me similar to Insanity and Call of Cthulhu, right? Trust is very important. It's a crucial piece of being that spy, and you want to watch it flux up and down as different things happen throughout the game. So I think it's pretty handy, and with the bonus dice adding and so forth, it's good. It's really cool. They also do. I'm talking about dice and such. The other piece, I guess not dice and such, but if you step outside of that for a second. The invokes and compels, very similar to the fate components from my cursory piece with fate, but they also have tags, temporary aspects. So like if a room is on fire, it has the on fire tag. Injuries are tags often for if a character has a rank 1 injury or rank 2 injury and rank 3, you could tag all 3 injuries, and so on. So there's little bits in there on how that how that functions, and so on. So again, the aspects piece, it's page and a half. It's really, really quick. These rules are not difficult to read through. They from a writing perspective, I read these, I'm like, oh, I grok that. Oh, yeah, I get that. Oh, yeah, I get that. I very rarely did I have to go back and reread something because I'm like, what does that mean? It's pretty sweet. They do have a big chunk on, not big. They've got probably a page and a half, 2 pages on the X card. Pages that 34, 35 section there about the X card, how to use it, what it is, and so forth. I have not seen, and I'm positive this is out there somewhere else, but a game system that I've bought or that I've read through that actually talks about the X card specifically as such, which I thought was kind of cool. Trust, cover, touchstones. Man, there's what did you think of the combat section, Sean? Action and violence. What did you think about that? Did it have the oomph you wanted to it?
I think it's really, I don't know, I like it. There isn't any initiative.
There's something cool about that, man. I've run a lot of different games without official initiative, and they work well.
So combat is run like this. There's 2. Strike and mass murder. That's it.
That's the two things options, near and dear to our hearts.
2 options. And strike is an immediate action. It's essentially an agent pulling out, a pistol, and that's it. Like, there's no formal, polite action like they said in a Western showdown. That's how it starts. So basically you say strike and you point at another player, no initiative rolls, you call it out, and it happens. They gain 2 bonus dice. So again, it's a risk. So they get 2 bonus dice. There is a slight advantage to surprise. Not much, but enough for 2 bonus dice. So that's what the 2 dice represents. If both agents call out strike at the same time, which would be interesting, neither gains bonus dice. And then there is no surprise, therefore no advantage.
So there's a piece in there that the example they have is, as Ben and I find out our characters are in heated debate, Ben's character says something to mine that my character doesn't quite like, so he decides to gun Ben's character down. I declare strike, the violence begins. This game, because of the spy-on-spy action, the wilderness of mirror, the betrayal, the player versus player possibilities are strong. When, at least in my opinion, when you read a game like this, and one of the examples they have of, hey, here's how you shoot a dude in the face, is this is when I fought another character, right? It's character on character action, so it's it's there, and I think that's a piece that you don't necessarily have to have, right? If everybody's lockstep and we're a great spy team and we never argue back and forth, but it's all part of the trust components of it that Sean was going through earlier. So I think inter-party conflict with the potential for violence is high, or at least not necessarily high, but could be high. I guess that's how I read it anyway.
So once it's initiated, then other agents can get in on it, but the first 2 are kind of in the midst of it. Is the first attack and defense are between the attacker and the defender and no one else. But after that, then it becomes more opposed risk checks. And what you do is you do your pool, but you hide your wagers. So then when you roll, it's whoever rolls the highest with the most amount of wagers. And again, remember, risk, when you're overcoming a risk, you're getting privilege, which allows you to narrate what happens. So you could potentially kill yourself if you wanted to make it like dramatic.
Yeah. Ben gets privilege. So he could narrate the outcome of the strike. He could say, I win the strike. He could say he wins the fight. He could say we both strike each other at the same time. It's up to him to determine how the fight goes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power that the players have back and forth. And I could see where potentially the X card component, or even potentially if you're not used to character-on-character violence quite like that, because if Sean gets privilege, I'm dead if Sean wishes me dead.
Well, so if you play the silence pistol rule, which is optional, if I say strike and you've been struck by a pistol, you die. A silenced pistol, you die. But when it's outcomes, there are injuries.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I guess I
Injury
was being a little hyperbole, but the point is that the potential's there that you're dead.
Right.
And that another character, another player across the table from you is dictating your death, potentially.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
And that may not be for everybody.
So there's ranks of injury, right? So you take one rank of injury. You may use wagers to increase the rank of the injury. That's another reason.
You can use trust to save your ass.
That's right.
You can, if you're about to be killed, you can pull one trust from the trust pool to reduce your health to a rank 5 injury. So that's that opportunity when Sean, that tricky bastard, shoots me in the back. I can take a little bit of trust, and I can spend that, and I can come back and get him again another day.
So mass murder is when after a strike occurs, if other agents want to be involved in the violence, then the narrator invokes the mass murder rules.
And this is not just player versus player. This is all combat, right?
Right. So you gather the dice. All players who want to be involved gather the dice if they were preparing for a strike. So it's violence plus aspect plus roll, if appropriate, plus any other bonuses. Then all players announce how many dice they have. And then if mass murder directly follows a strike, the winner of the strike gains 2 bonus dice for the mass murder. If an agent has the quick advantage, they may use it during this step. You declare strikes on the count of 3. Each player points at who they want to strike. If a player wants to strike an NPC, then they point at the narrator.
That reminds me of a card game. Was it Guns and Money? Where you've got
Guns or Money or Bang? I don't even know.
No, it's Guns and Money. Where
Okay.
you've got foam. You have foam pistols.
Right.
1, 2, 3, and you point them at each other.
Yes.
I've
never played, but I've seen it played.
I could see playing this game with foam pistols. I could
yeah.
see playing this game with foam pistols.
Well, it's good that you picked foam pistols, Brett.
Well, things could get heated. And I don't want people to actually get hurt.
Right, that's true. And then on the third step, during the strike, everyone sets aside wagers secretly and rolls. The player who rolls highest has initiative and privilege. He may declare his strikes first. No player loses any wagers for not gaining privilege in mass murder. Okay, so just because you didn't overcome the risk and win doesn't mean you lose your wagers like in many other risks. So all players keep all wagers made. In the event of a tie, strikes occur simultaneously. Striking agent rolls a contested violence risk against his target. The winner gets privilege. So during mass murder, an agent may strike one opponent. Then the player who rolled the next highest number may declare a strike. This continues until all agents involved have made a strike. Good stuff.
Very good. And I think can probably go through the rest of this a little quicker, possibly here. So the next piece is Chapter 6, they talk about the espionage and intrigue, how gear and gadgets, shrinks in psychology. Spies are a goddamn mess. It's one of my favorite quotes from this book. Operational advantages, you talk about agents and allies and so forth. You get into, the thing I think is cool, and this is, I believe what you were alluding to, is we talk about seasons.
Yes.
This is, if you're playing this as a campaign, there's season actions. There's passage of time. There's, at the end of each season, the director prepares their season actions. Season actions represent large, long-ranging plans and goals. Which is kind of cool, because if you think about the long tail, or the long pole in the tent, if you will, of, a deep mole insertion into the British agency, or you're trying to infiltrate the Russians, or you're trying to infiltrate the Germans, or whomever, and you've got to work your way into it. You're not going to do that in one session, right? So the concept of season actions and how that plays out, I think, is pretty interesting. At least the concept of putting it together is interesting. I don't know. I'm assuming it should play out pretty well. But it's kind of like a more in-depth downtime is what it feels like to me. Sean, what did you think of this section?
Yeah, I agree. It's more in what would be considered in some games downtime. You get certain actions to occur and the seasons are literally spring, summer, autumn, winter. I mean, we're not making this, somewhere arbitrary. It's literally that.
It also reminded me of Bookhounds of London version of Trail of Cthulhu by Ken Hite. In the Bookhounds of London, your bookstore has different things that can happen at different points. You can make more money, you can get more exquisite product, so on and so forth. So there's like a mini section of rules around just how the bookstore itself functions within the setting. And similar here, but on a larger scale, because it's about the agency and the director. It's pretty cool. I mean, the director takes a number of season actions, division improvements, crafting items, personal training. Then division improvements happen. Brand new asset beginning. Replacing assets, getting new ones. Archives for bonus intellect wagers. Combat instructors, con ops. A lot of good stuff in there. Garages for maintaining your vehicles, garrisons. Quartermaster, get you some gear.
So
benefits of quality. You talked about that earlier. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Keep going.
So I've skipped way ahead to
Go for
age. To age.
Yeah.
So you'll when you roll up your character, you roll a d6 and write that number. How is it? You'll find a space for age. When you created your character, you were instructed to roll 1d6 and write that number in the age column. It is the end of the year, time to add to that total. So at the end of the year, each agent rolls 1d6 and adds those age points to their age. And when your agent's age reaches 60 points or higher, your character advances to the next phase of their life. Spring to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, winter to death. So once you reach 60 or higher, erase that total. You now have 0 age points. And at the end of next year, roll 1d6 and write down your roll in that spot.
So you're going to die.
Yeah.
Just because of, natural causes, nothing else, you'll get too old. At some point, you go from spring to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, and then eventually you die.
Well, and some of this is going to, leveling, right? So some conventional games, leveling. This starts when you go from season to season. Some things you get to do different things. So when your character moves from spring to summer, or summer to fall, or fall to winter, you make certain changes to your character.
You can change your name.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool.
Aspects, covers, virtues.
Interesting.
Yep.
I do like the idea of you start out, you're adding numbers, right? And by the time you get to 60, you flip. And it's not actually that you're 60, it's just 60 points, which is to the old Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
That's
right? How hard was this last trip for you? Nice, I like this. Pass away or retire at the end for death. You'll have to make a new character as the character is no longer playable. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then it's got chunks on, wars between agencies, how things escalate, insults, murders, all that good stuff, because obviously, the KGB and the CIA and the FBI back in the Cold War and so forth, you had all that stuff plus everything else. And there's ways that the war works, first calculations, moral high ground, orders, and all that stuff. So it's very concise, honestly. And I was really impressed reading through this, Sean, that it's so concise. I don't know a better word to say right now, but there's so much packed into these 130 pages, and that it's really I don't see a lot of fat added onto this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be overly complicated. Where if you have your character and your agency and a narrator that kind of knows what they're doing, and that you have creative people at the table, it's going to be a game that's going to essentially run itself at some point. And then once you get into a season and over time, I could see playing this thing for a long time with wars against other agencies. And
you could go through you could start at the beginning of the Cold War, like post World War II, and work your way all the way to modern times, or all the way to the end of the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall. You could go from the end of the war to the wall falls in Berlin as an arc, right, or as overarching approach to this campaign. And yeah, you'll go through many different characters throughout, but then you have that opportunity. I read this and I thought, man, if Sean and I are playing and my character hits that point when he's too old, he doesn't have to die, but he retires. Then he becomes an NPC in Sean's case file, right? Brett's guy, he's retired. 2-3 characters later, my gal needs some information. Here's a name. That person's only myth within the agency, retired 5 seasons ago. Oh my God, it's Brett's old character. That's kind of cool. You can do callbacks. You can do all that kind of stuff through here. I think it's really neat. The only thing I could think of that is weird. When I played Fate Accelerated one time, whenever the Invokes and Compels, Accelerated is a little bit different, but the Invokes and Compels is awkward for me because I'm not used to using those. But I don't think it would take much. Play it a couple sessions, and I think you'd be right as rain. I don't think it'd be that difficult to get into.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential, and I might run it at Gamehole Con, because if I can I may have a couple copies of the book. I may create some quick generation rules, and then port forth a mission and see what the hell happens.
They do have a section there, I mentioned this before, Cold Shadows Solitaire, their Chapter 12. It's for playing Cold Shadows by yourself. So that's interesting. I don't see a lot of those out there, solo RPG games like that, but that could be kind of neat. Then they've got stuff on spyware, fighting style, and so forth. But I think that's the bulk of it, man. That's pretty much, it's only like 130 pages, like I said. But it seems like there's a lot in there, and I keep saying that, but it did impress me. At first I was kind of like, meh, we'll see. But, I went through it, and I'm impressed. I think it'd be fun to play.
So there is more to the game, obviously. We didn't go through some of the things that Brett had mentioned in the back of the book and how things can develop over time. But most of the core stuff, kind of the obvious things you're going to want to know about the role-playing game. So, yeah, there you go. Check it out for the most part. So anything else to say about that, Brett?
No, man, I think it's cool. If somebody has a question about a piece of it or whatever, I mean, right now I think I picked up my copy off of Drive-Thru RPG for $15. Well worth it. $15, not a big expense in my book. So I think it's definitely worth it. Pick it up, parse through it, and Sean's right. I initially hit it thinking that it was a Cold War focus, and it's not. I think you can do a lot more with it than just that. So it's good. I think it'll be fun when Sean gets it to the table and I can play.
Great. Die roll. So what are we going to be talking about this week? But Cold Shadows. So I have a few that I gathered up for us. Rob Wieland did an article on Cold Shadows over on Geek and Sundry. If you want to know a little bit more about the game, head over there. Link in the show notes. Second one, Tabletop Radio Hour podcast did an actual play. Spoiler, I will just put it out there. They did 3 episodes, and then the 4th one was going to wrap it up, and they had an audio problem with the 4th episode. So they literally couldn't... The last recording that they had to wrap up the 4-session game... Failed.
Oh!
They couldn't recover it, so what they did was they narrated, or they kind of went back and explained what had happened in that episode.
So more wrap-up-y than actual play-y.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So, but still, nonetheless, I thought it was pretty good. The first 3 episodes, I'll give those guys a lot of kudos. I think it was pretty good. And they had Alan, I believe, from the actual game running Cold Shadows.
Very cool.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. Alan Barr was one of the guys. Third one, Gallant Knight Games. That's obviously the publisher of Cold Shadows, and we'll have a link to the official website for them. And then the last one, role-playing games. This is not Cold Shadows related, but could be any game. Role-playing games for people who don't like D&D. So that was an article by Nick Douglas on Lifehacker. I think it was last month, May, that he might have put that out, 2018. So check that out. It gives you some games where some of you are probably playing already and appreciate. And some of you that may not know about some of those games on Lifehacker, you may want to check out. Yeah.
Very cool, man. It's good stuff.
So there you go. Brett?
Yeah, Sean?
The inevitable question.
What are we going to talk about next time?
What are we going to talk about next time?
Well, I've got two different things, potentially. We've got Sean and I have some gaming goodness coming up this coming weekend, the first weekend in June. So depending what comes out of that, Sean, I could see us popping up a topic out of various discussions and things we have that weekend. However, if we do not, I was thinking of honestly asking you and me to come up with what's your favorite critter? Like D&D monster. What is your favorite monster that you have modified, used, made your own? What have you done, right? I think I've talked about the yellow musk creeper zombies I did a while back and some of those components. But what have you done with something that's either old, quote-unquote, overused, or something like a gelatinous cube, something you've done different? How have you modified something? I think it'd be kind of cool to talk about. So we'll either talk about that or if something pops up over the weekend, because Sean and I will be hip-deep in some gaming goodness this weekend with some friends, so we'll see what happens.
Well, there you have it.
There we go.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you appreciated our in-depth look at Cold Shadows. This has been another episode of Gaming and BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Mark CMG Clover, Andy Hall, Corey Wynn, Graham Meinert, Joe Swick, Brett's biggest fan, Forrest Aguirre, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jeppesen, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Palladian, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Humphrey, James Carpio, Not Caprio, Pure Monroe, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnson, Brandon Barnes, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Lost Sailor, Misdirected Mark Productions, Christopher Gray, Finolf, Marco Froilich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Todd Crapper, Alexander Auerbach, Neil Benson, Chris Steele, Eric the Hoffman, Kyle Winter, Curtis Takahashi, Mark Tasaka, Larry Hout, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Craig Huber, Xavier G, JV, John Hammersley, The Closet Gamer, John Steve, Jared Rasher, Mark Richmond, Thomas Hook, Blake Ryan, Chad Glayman, Sky, Roger Braslett, Evan Harrison Cass, Craig, Howard Bishop, Jim Fitzpatrick, Peter Skanes, Knights of the Night Crew, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Eli Kurtz, Patiri Tertianen, Edwin Nagy, Bruce Cunnington, Aaron Coleman, Tim Short, Stefan Dragonspawn, Aonegas, Rolfer Guild, Gordon Cranford, Eric Salzweedle, Trezzy, George Sedgwick, Kevin Lovecrack, Matt Cyberlick, Jack Neller, and Robert Nemeth. Eric Bonts. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.